Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, WeatherTech, Hum by Verizon, RockAuto.com, and State Farm. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, Brian Robinson.
Hello, welcome to podcast number 186. I am Brian Robinson, not John Davis. He's off who knows where this week, doing who knows what, but he's left this to us this week, so hopefully we can get through it without disappointing our regular listeners too much. Helping me get through it is Greg Carlos, our online content coordinator.
That's me with all this space finally over here.
You're well coordinated.
Finally spread out.
Our writer researcher, Garick Zeichen.
Thank you for having me again.
It's always a pleasure to have you, Garick.
Thank you.
And, of course, our podcast producer and editor, Joe Ligo.
The pleasure is all mine.
And who does a great job.
Oh, now you're just trying to butter me up.
Looks like we'll be doing our typical run through a few road tests that we've had lately, lightning round, and of course the viewer question, and if we have time, a rant and or rave. So let's get right into some recent road tests. 2018 Mazda6 midsize sedan.
Yeah.
Who wants to talk about that one?
I'll start that one off. This is a car that actually transitioned into our long-term fleet, which I can say I'm thankful for that. So it's not an all-new model. I mean, it's a pretty heavy update. Yeah, new front fascia. Biggest news is that new turbocharged engine, which I think comes out of the CX-9, right? Is it the 2.5?
I believe so. It's the same four-cylinder that you get in the 6 before. That just now has a turbo on it.
Right. Which, honestly, to me makes all the difference because driving that thing on the highway, I mean, it seems like in any gear,
it's just
ready to roll. Yeah,
no, it's funny. You pointed out the exact same thing I wrote in our long-term logbook is you're on the highway and you're going 65 and you need to pass and you just dip into the gas. And it seems like it could go all the way up to like 120 and not even struggle.
It's weird because there's really no lag. You're not waiting for a downshift and you're not waiting on turbo lag. It's just like there, which is so surprising to me.
Another big part of the update was thorough suspension, if I can talk today, thorough suspension redesign. Obviously, Mazda6 always been one of the greatest handlers in the segment. They made a point of wanting to smooth out the ride. Some people thought it was too rough before. What are your thoughts on how they did with that?
I could say that it's probably... I could see where it's a little bit softer, but we also have a Camry, and it's an XSE Camry. And I think the Mazda still feels a little bit more dialed in than the Camry. And remember, that's a sport-tuned Camry, too.
Yeah.
And this is just like a premium Mazda 6.
Yeah,
so.
This one I noticed is a pretty cushy Mazda 6 because we've had lower-level ones in the past.
It's expensive.
It feels very expensive, but it does feel a little, I don't want to, muted sounds negative. I don't mean it in a bad way, but it is less... It is slightly dulled from the other Mazda 6s that maybe give you a little more of the road experience. So it fits the bill of being sort of a luxury Mazda 6. But I'd probably be happier with a manual trans base level one.
Well, you can still get that.
But, that's the other thing is it's one of the few mid-sized cars you can still get a manual in, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and you have to get the upper trim levels to get the turbo, which is unfortunate. And but there's 2 new up-level trims, and we have the highest of those. So, yeah, as Greg said, it's over 35,000.
Does that thing have a blow-off valve or something?
Well, yeah,
I notice a little
do, but
every time you let off the gas, there's a little psst.
You can hear that one a lot more than other turbos. I mean, it seems like they probably went out of their way to make sure that you can hear it.
I'm like, what is this, a WRX? Like, that seemed a little...
I'm all for it.
Garick, when we got it in, you were clamoring to write all the long-term reports on it.
Yes.
So tell us why you like the Mazda 6 so much.
I like it. I had it this weekend, and that's one of the cars where if I have it for the weekend, suddenly I don't do any chores. I just drive, and that's what I did. I like the turbo engine. I like the transmission. Downshifting, you don't feel that. I like the suspension. What I like is, their marketing, zoom, and driving matters. I think that this is one of the cars where it lives up to the marketing slogan. So, I was in it for many hours this weekend, and I never got tired. It was interesting to drive. I was playing around with the adaptive cruise control and the other things, but I just like driving it. It's comfortable. The only downside that I have on it is headroom, and ours has the electric moonroof. So you lose an inch on that. I looked that up, but you're going to lose that on any car.
Right.
I think over time, the longer I was in it, it was not as much of an issue. But that was the only thing that stood. I like that the interior, and we've seen this on other Mazdas, where the technology is kind of in the background of the artistry. I like the lines. I like the layout of the dash. It has all that other stuff, but it's not right in your face like some other cars, and I like that. So it was a lot of fun to drive, and I'm glad we have it for a year to truly get a chance to know it.
Well said.
Yeah,
So
spoken like a true writer right there. I like that.
Well, we both brought up the Camry. So Camry and Accord are obviously the two-headed monster in this segment. No one else really even gets close to them. Sales-wise, do we think the Mazda 6 will get closer with this update? And what do you tell someone that's looking at a Camry and Accord and say, hey, this is why you should go check out Mazda 6?
I don't see Mazda gaining much ground on them. Sure, they might sell a few more for this one, but I can't say that this is the Mazda 6 that gets closer to a Camry or an Accord.
It's a shrinking, or at least it's a plateaued segment in terms of
for
sales.
all the reasons that we like it is probably all the reasons that the average person doesn't like it. It's a little bit more expensive. They don't need a turbocharged engine. They don't need it to ride as stiff as it does. So I just don't see it catching up much.
I do want to say thank goodness to Mazda if you're out there. Thank you for doing this and not just taking the easy way out saying we're just going to only build crossovers like some of the other brands out there. I mean, as long as the 6 is around, I'll tell people to buy it.
I'd still think it's, style-wise too, I think it's the best looking in that segment.
I agree.
Looks good.
I agree. But I think price for normal people, price is going to matter.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of crossovers, Joe,
Yes.
there's a new one out from Nissan called the Kicks, which Garick has recently driven. Why don't you tell us all about it?
Right. So Nissan Kicks, Nissan is still making the Juke, just not here in the U.S. So this, it doesn't replace it, but in this market, it will replace it. On paper, it's 125 horsepower. It's a 1.6-liter i4, 125 horsepower, and a CVT. And on paper, going in, that doesn't really sound very interesting. However, once you get in it and once you drive it, it's a different experience. And one of the things that they pointed out is that when they were making this car, they paid attention to the weight to horsepower ratio. So the Kicks, it's less than 2,700 pounds, which I looked at the other competitors. It is the next highest one is the Mazda CX-3. It's 130 pounds lighter than that and 200 pounds lighter than the Hyundai Kona. Now, most of the other competitors are between 140 and 150 horsepower. But given its size and its weight, that engine, driving it, it was engaging. It really was. It wasn't, like I said, you have to get in and drive it to get an entirely different experience. I think that it has Nissan's Global V platform, which it shares with the Versanote and sedan, so it is small. However, it has plenty of legroom, which is a biggie for me, plenty of headroom in the front and the back. Cargo room with the second seat up has the most of 7 competitors and second most with the second seat down. So, and of course, the design is much more mainstream. So I think that's going to appeal to more people. But what I really think, they've done really 2 really good things here. First of all, automatic emergency braking is standard on all of them. And then the price, it starts at $17,990. So for $18,000, you're getting that feature. A lot of the other competitors are starting above that $20,000 mark. And if you're looking for a car, your first car or a commuter car or something compact, with car companies moving away from cars and into crossovers, I think you're going to have fewer and fewer options below that $20,000 mark. So I think they've been very smart at the price point.
Right, that'll get a person into the dealer, and then they might walk out with something that's a $21,000 something,
right.
But it'll at least get them in to look at it.
Right, exactly. But in theory, I mean, for you, around 20, you can get a new small crossover. So Yeah, that's pretty much what I have. I enjoy driving. Our drive was a combination of roads and highway. There wasn't a point where I felt like I was waiting for it to get going. So.
And much roomier than the Juke, I believe you said, because that was
yes.
my biggest complaint. The Juke was actually early on an adopter to the whole
Right,
super small crossovers,
Right.
And but it was just far and away, to me anyway, not a practical vehicle in any way.
The
but
Juke seemed more style over substance.
Style
They
and
made
performance.
space sacrifices to make it look cool.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like they're going to more, as you said, mainstream.
Right,
with the
right,
Kicks.
exactly,
Good call.
and it's a hot segment. You know, you have Kona's new,
EcoSport's new.
EcoSport is new for us. You have HRV, CHR, the Trax, CX3. So it's an interesting segment. It really is.
What do you think, Greg? Haven't heard anything.
I'm taking it all in over here. I actually have sat back and read quite a few reviews on it. I didn't personally get to drive it, but I've heard more than a few people say the same thing you did, Garick. It's a whole context thing of people see a 1.6 liter with 125 horsepower, and they immediately think, well, it's slow. But it's not, because you put that in the context of a 2,700-pound car. That's nothing today.
Right.
I mean, that's so light where you put a couple of groceries in the back and you can actually feel
the
a
weight
weight
difference.
difference. So, yeah, I mean, everything I've heard that it has the pep. Don't let the 125 horsepower fool you.
Right.
I think they're making a great decision by toning back on the Juke styling. It is more mainstream, and the fact that you can get emergency or auto emergency braking for a car that's probably going to stay a lot in the city, I mean, that's huge. It's huge for under 20 grand.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of small crossovers, how about some compact luxury ones? We recently did a comparison with our friends at Cars.com. Garick, you were also on that event.
I was.
Because we do like to keep you out of the office as much as possible.
He's our world traveler.
Fortunately, I like to travel, so it's a win-win.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So the segment is Luxury Compact SUV Challenge. It was 7 vehicles. Volvo XC60, Audi Q5, Infiniti QX50, Cadillac XT5, Alfa Romeo Stelvio, BMW X3, and Lexus NX 300F Sport. The price target was $50,000 plus or minus 3. As you know, they have 4 judges. They have go in 13 different categories, so it's not just handling, powertrain, and ride quality. They go into things like the material qualities,
Tech interface,
comfort in the front seats, the back seats, visibility. So it's a whole range of things that they look at.
You have like a whole spreadsheet you have to fill out.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of boxes you have to check. What's interesting on this event was there was a track component. So we were doing 0 to 60 times on all of them and the braking distances. So of the 7, number 1 was the Volvo XC60. And basically what the verdict was, you know, the driving experience was fine, but it had the technology and the practicality and the quality as well as the safety features that some of the other ones did not. And that's really what pushed it over the top. At the bottom of the list, number 7. So anyway, the top 4 was the Volvo, Audi Q5 was 2, Infiniti QX50 was 3, and the Cadillac XT5 was 4. Alfa was 5, BMW was 6, and at 7 was the Lexus NX 300F Sport. Because like I mentioned, there was a track component, so that car had the slowest 0 to 60 and also had the longest braking distance.
Even though it was the F Sport.
Correct. Right.
F Sport's just a trim package.
Yeah. Right. The standard. They like the standard safety features, but size-wise, the back seat was kind of cramped and cargo areas were cramped. So again, you know, taking all those factors in, that's where that ended up there, and then the rest were at various stages in between. I think what's interesting about this, because you can look at the list and not agree with it and say, oh, this one should be 2 and this one should be 3, but it's a comparison, so they have to rank them. I think that the takeaway in this, and really in any of these comparisons, is that, but particularly in this one, that a luxury compact SUV, it's not a cookie cutter, and not everyone's doing the same thing. You have a range, and it seems like the range here was between sport and luxury, and every one of these found a place along that range. So wherever you are as a customer, you could probably find one that's going to match what's important to you.
Oh, well said. The only maybe surprise, I don't know. I maybe don't look at the XC60 as compact. I look at that more as a midsize.
Right.
But I don't know, the price-wise, it's right. It falls right in line.
Correct. Right.
So I guess your buyers are getting more for less. So I guess it makes sense that it's in there.
Mm-hmm. I struggled with that too.
Yeah, that's tricky because maybe the XC40 is a little bit too small and the XC60 is a little bit too big.
Right.
And that's the thing about these genres or classes of crossovers is there's a lot of, it's not clearly defined. There's a lot of overlap and segment splitters that are too big to be one thing and too small to be the other thing.
Correct.
Right. Which is a good strategy because then you can compare yourself to whoever you're most favorable against, which I've seen
a
lot of people, they claim to be compact, but then they make comparisons to midsize,
right.
Whenever it works out in their favor.
The salesman at the dealership says, well, it gets better mileage than the bigger car and it gets more room than the smaller car, and so they always have somebody to one up when they're marketing the product.
Right.
I was just going to say, did you feel the Volvo was the best? Did you agree with that? Or sometimes we're in agreement with them and sometimes we're not. How did you feel?
Right. There were some that were lower on the list that I probably would move higher. So two, and I've had reactions from people, the Stelvio and the BMW. So Stelvio came in 5th and the BMW came in 6th. The Stelvio did the best on the track. It had the fastest 0 to 60 time. The negatives for that, and so it was really, as far as a driver's car, that really ranked the highest. But it had a lot of other features that they weren't crazy about, like the interior material quality didn't necessarily compare to some of the other ones. Not that it was bad, just didn't compare to some of the other ones. Comfort, cargo space, and again, multimedia. So that would kind of account for that. The BMW, they agreed that, robust powertrain, good handling, good ride, as we know. But at this price point, it lacked some of the safety features, and it had a small multi-screen. Mm-hmm. Now, you can get those as options. But again, we're trying to do apples to apples.
You got to do it, yeah.
So at this price point, that's where it lost points.
Mm-hmm. I'd see that's probably the BMW, probably the one we get the most blowback from. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any comments, Greg, before we move on?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was shocked that the X3 finished so low because I remember we liked it. I liked it a lot, but when you brought up the $50,000 price point, that makes a lot more sense because I know BMW can get kind of stingy with some of their features at the lower end.
Yeah, and it's true. Generally, it's not 100%, but generally our test cars are the top trim level,
right,
and a lot of options. And, I've had that happen where I get in a car and it's like, wow, this thing's great. And then I'll get in one a year later that someone buys and they bought the base model or I'm like, wow, that's a totally different
Where's
vehicle.
the 10-inch screen? And
right.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
And, of course, the video is already on YouTube, so all our viewers out there can watch the comparison and see it for themselves.
Right. Good point, Joseph. Appreciate that.
A little cross-promotion there.
So let's move on to our lightning round. Each panelists will get 30 seconds to weigh in on this trending topic. Here we go. A recent motor news segment talked about a company called Reviver Auto, which makes digital license plates. The plates can track the vehicle, display messages, and issue alerts from law enforcement. However, the plates aren't cheap, $699 for the unit, and $7.75 monthly fee on top of that. Sacramento, California is currently testing them. What do we think of this new technology? What do we mean by Sacramento is currently testing them?
I guess they're doing...
for their city fleet.
Oh, okay.
They're testing.
Oh, I get you. All right, who wants to go first on this wonderful topic?
I'll break the ice on
Joe.
it then, I guess. I think it's a cool idea, despite the government is tracking me tinfoil hat kind of thing.
They already are.
I mean,
anyway.
yeah.
Tinfoil ball cap.
I was gonna say, if you have a cell phone, they're already tracking you. But it's just the cost thing, man. I mean, you go to register your car and you get your car inspected, and they say, oh yeah, by the way, that'll be $700 plus $7 a month. It's a real downer, man.
Fee.
I mean, I hope those license plates last a long time. That's my piece.
Garick?
I'm good with the metal plate I have on my car and the little sticker I have to put it every other year.
Short and sweet.
Greg?
I can see the merit I don't think it's going to catch on quickly. I think we have some other mountains to climb first. But I do like the idea that if like Amber Alert were to go out, I think that's what it would do. It would flash like the license tag, or even if the person who made the abduction was driving the car, it would just say, "I am the abductor.
Arrest me, please." Please. It would just flash, arrest this car.
So obviously, that would be cool, but somebody's going to hack into it, and there's going to be quite a few arguments ahead about it.
All right, so moving on to our...
Don't you have something to say about it?
I never have anything to say.
Dude, he's still got a flip phone, man.
Where we're going to make that joke again?
As long as he has a flip phone, I will.
It seems to me there's better ways to do it, than, as Greg said, we already get the Amber Alerts on our phones and stuff like that. I'm not sure we need to put all this money into
now, what if it was built in from the factory? Like every car from the factory had a built-in screen instead of a plate.
Well,
that's fine. Just don't make me pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. Then we're just adding weight and technology,
that you will pay for.
Yeah, someone will have to pay for. But they've already got, most cars have a screen in the dash now. You can certainly access that already. All right. Can we move on now, Joe?
Yes.
Because Steve from Portland is anxiously waiting an answer to this question.
All right, let's help poor Steve.
Sorry to make you wait, Steve. Steve has been watching MotorWeek on Oregon Public Broadcasting for decades. That's saying something. My wife and I originally planned to purchase a Honda Clarity plug-in hybrid to replace her old Accord, but neither of us are enamored with the Clarity's styling. Are there any other PHEVs with a pure electric range close to the Clarity's 40 to 50 miles? So he doesn't like the Clarity. I can certainly understand that. I don't know where he's coming from.
I certainly agree.
There's a ton of plugins right now. Any of them out there that he should look at?
There's a lot of the 20 to 30 mile range, but Volt is the only one I can think of that cracks the 40 mile barrier.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
Prius Prime, which I don't think quite gets up.
That's like 26 or something.
No, I mean, honestly, yeah.
Nero plug-in is 26. The Outlander plug-in's 22. C-Max, which nobody buys, is like 20. That Fusion Energy we have in right now that I really like.
Yeah,
I only got 19 miles out of that. So if he's willing to live with a shorter range, there's way more selection. But
yeah, that's a good 30. Point. Low 30 seems to be about the top, other than the Volt that I can think of offhand.
I think the big thing
we have a studio audience that's going to correct us.
So it's not a plug-in hybrid. It's the Hyundai Ioniq, the hybrid blue. It can get up to 59 mile range.
They do have a plug-in version of the Ioniq.
I was going to say, for those didn't hear Ashley's off mic, she said the Hyundai Ioniq Blue that we have in now is not a plug-in, but it does get 50 plus MPGe, and they are coming out with a plug-in which will use the same platform as the Nero.
Yeah. It gets 50 MPGs, but not 50 miles on electric.
No, 50 MPGs, right.
Yeah. Right. But I will say, though, I really like the Ioniq. I know some people were complaining that it was Spartan, but I like driving it more than I like driving a Prius.
I like driving it more than I like driving the Nero.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Because it's the same platform.
Right.
Yeah.
It just seems more nimble.
Smaller and lighter.
Because it's lighter.
And not pretending to be an SUV.
Right. But I was surprised that I would like it, driving it as much as I do. But yeah, it's very nimble, and for running around town, it's fun.
Steve should seriously think about how much electric range he and his wife needs, because, like you said, there is a lot more selection.
Right,
in the 20 to 30
if you're willing to
mile
go
range.
20 to 30 miles, and you get one off lease, you can get a really good deal on one. Like a used Fusion Energy is pretty cheap.
And I'm not sure how much better the Volt looks than the Clarity, although it maybe looks a little more mainstream.
Oh yeah, I would say so.
The second gen Volt,
the new one, the current one, yes. And I think, I know in our area, I don't know about Oregon, I imagine they're pretty big sellers in Oregon. In our area, you can get a pretty good deal on Volts.
Well, you would lose some space in the Volt, too. I think it's also a much smaller car, isn't it, than the Clarity? Clarity's,
I don't know.
That's the problem. Is the Clarity is
Accord in size.
Right. That's the problem. Is the Clarity is closer. It's a little bit more upmarket. But if he wants to stay in Honda territory, the Insight is coming out. I mean, I know that's also not a plug-in, but maybe he'd like the Insight styling better. Maybe not. I
don't know about that.
Sorry.
All right. Anyone have a rant and or a rave? Anybody? Anybody?
Joe, I know you got something.
I've got like a catalog of them
Come
stored.
on, man.
Fine,
All right, let it loose.
MPGe, the EPA
Mileage
system
per
for
gallon
rain
equivalent.
That's
right.
what it is.
Miles per gallon. It's so. Yes, I understand what it is, but I think to the average consumer, it is so confusing because it's like this hybrid gets 112 MPGe. What does that mean? Does it mean when I go shopping for a car, I want to know if it's a plug-in hybrid. I want to know the battery range and the miles per gallon after the battery is dead. That's what's important to me. And this MPGe, it's like, well, is it a 100-mile test loop? Well, if it's a plug-in hybrid and 50% of that is battery power, then it completely skews the test. I think MPGe is confusing. I want to know what's the range of the battery and what's the mileage once the battery's dead.
They give you both of those. It's all on the label.
I know,
The
but
MPGe
they
is strictly-
advertise the MPGe in commercials.
You're
'cause it's
taking issue with the actual usage of manufacturers putting out that number.
Right, they use it
over
as a
other
marketing
numbers.
ploy. They're like,
Yeah,
you'll get
well,
up to
that's what it is.
118
They
miles
wanna
per
sell
gallon
cars,
equivalent.
Joe.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's a stupid number. Why did we have to base the range of why do we have to base an electric motor's efficiency off of gasoline? It just seems archaic. I don't know.
Well, it's just something that everyone understands and can relate to. And if you go to the fueleconomy.gov site, it gives you the MPGe, then it gives you the MPG without the battery, and it gives you total electric range. It gives it all to you on fueleconomy.gov.
I think it's just I think that's good, and that's what I would do if I was shopping. But I think just the MPGe system should be kind of put away. I don't like it. I think it adds one more number that could confuse buyers. I don't see what's wrong with saying 40-mile range, 35 miles to the gallon.
What is the layout on the sticker, though? Is the big number MPGe? Where
The MPGe, combined MPGe and combined miles per gallon without electricity are equal in size. And then underneath it says
Gotcha.
range, electric range.
So I just think it adds one more thing to be confused about, and I don't think it was necessary.
Joe doesn't like being confused.
Yeah, quit changing stuff already.
Let's go back to carburetors. No.
Well, with that, we'll wrap up podcast number 186. I want to thank producer Joe, audio engineer Jim Bigwood, and, of course, podcast creator Bob Mixter. Be sure to check us out on PBS and Velocity and
YouTube.
all over the internets. And thanks for tuning in.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, WeatherTech, Hum by Verizon, RockAuto.com, and State Farm. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.